It is 2:30 in the morning. The date is May 14th, 2008. Imagine the setting. You are standing in the dead center of the Great Plains. The sky here isn't just a ceiling. It is a vast, suffocating canopy of black ink that stretches from one horizon to the other. There is no light pollution here, no comforting orange glow of a city on the edge of your vision. Just the cold, hard starlight, the wind cutting through the tall prairie grass with a sound like whispering voices, and the gravel shifting beneath your feet. You are a parent. Specifically, you are Brandon Swanson. You are sitting in the cab of your truck, the engine idling warmly, gripping a silver flip phone against your ear. You're talking to your 19-year-old son, Brandon. Brandon isn't in apparent danger. At least, he doesn't think he is. He doesn't sound scared. He sounds annoyed. He sounds frustrated, perhaps a bit embarrassed. He is a college kid who just finished his spring semester, had a few drinks to celebrate with friends, and made a foolish navigation mistake driving home. He drove his car into a ditch on a rural back road, a field road as the locals call them. He's fine. He's uninjured. He's out of the vehicle and walking toward a town he can see glowing faintly in the distance. You stay on the line with him. You do it to keep him company, to keep him calm, and to ensure he reaches that town safely. You are driving to pick him up, navigating the grid of roads yourself. You talk about casual things to pass the time, the route he's walking, the fences he's hopping over, the chill in the air. You are his anchor. For 47 minutes, you are his lifeline, a fragile digital tether connecting father and son across the dark, silent expanse of rural Minnesota. 47 minutes of mundane conversation that will soon become the most scrutinized 47 minutes of your life. And then, in the 47th minute, something breaks that tether. Oh shit. That expletive, oh shit, was the last thing anyone ever heard Brandon Swanson say. He didn't scream for help. He didn't say goodbye. He didn't whisper a final message. He simply reacted to something in the dark, and then he was gone. He didn't vanish days later. He didn't disappear after leaving a crowded bar. He vanished while his parents were listening.
He vanished mid-sentence. 17 years later, the question remains, haunting the flatlands of western Minnesota. How does a young man simply walk off the face of the earth in the middle of a phone call? What did he see in that final second? And why has the prairie refused to give him up? I'm Dave, and this is the story of the boy who walked into the dark. To understand the darkness of that night and how a routine drive turned into a nightmare, we first have to look at the brightness of the day that preceded it. We need to understand who Brandon was, not just as a victim, but as a young man with a future that was rapidly unfolding. Brandon Swanson was born on January 30th, 1989. He was a native of Marshall, Minnesota, a town of about 13,000 people in the southwest corner of the state. If you've never been to this part of the country, you have to understand the geography to understand this case. This is Big Sky country. It is incredibly flat, glacially flattened eons ago. It is a patchwork quilt of farmland, corn and soybeans stitched together by a rigid grid of gravel roads that stretch on toward the horizon, indistinguishable from one another. In the winter, it's a frozen tundra. In the summer, it's a sea of green. But at night, it is a void. Brandon was a good kid. By all accounts, he was grounded, responsible, and had a good head on his shoulders. He wasn't a troublemaker. He had graduated from Marshall High School in 2007 and had a clear vision for his future. He wasn't drifting through life. He enrolled at Minnesota West Community and Technical College in Canby, a town about 30 miles away, to study wind turbines. This choice of major tells you something about him. In 2008, wind energy was the booming future of the plains. Giant white turbines were starting to dot the landscape, harvesting the constant prairie wind. Brandon wanted to be a pioneer in that field. He was practical, forward-thinking, and ready to work. Tuesday, May 13, 2008, was a day of relief and celebration. Classes had just ended for the academic year. The exams were done. The pressure was off. The summer stretched out before him. That evening, Brandon decided to celebrate with his peers. He drove from his home in Marshall to the college campus in Canby. It's about 30 miles drive along State Highway 68, a straight shot northwest. He spent the evening hopping between two different farewell parties. One was at a classmate's home in Canby, another at a residence nearby.
Witnesses, mostly fellow students, later told investigators that Brandon was drinking. This is a crucial detail, one that skeptics often point to as the primary cause of the tragedy. Yes, he was drinking whiskey and cola. However, his friends were adamant about his condition when questioned later. They told police that while he had consumed alcohol, he wasn't stumbling. He wasn't slurring his words. He wasn't visibly intoxicated. One friend reportedly told him, "You're fine," as he left. He seemed, for all intents and purposes, capable of making the drive. As the clock ticked toward midnight, the parties wound down. Students dispersed, heading home for the summer or back to their dorms. Brandon said his goodbyes, promising to keep in touch, maybe making plans for the summer break. He walked out into the cool May air, got into his car, a green Chevy Lumina, and prepared to make the familiar 30-mile drive back home to Marshall. It was a drive he had made dozens of times, a straight line on a map. Highway 68 is a paved two-lane road. It should have been an easy 40-minute cruise. But on this night, for reasons that remain a mystery, Brandon didn't stick to the highway. Brandon leaves Canby shortly after midnight. It is now technically May 14th. In rural Minnesota, locals often avoid the main highways at night. Sometimes it's to save time by cutting across the hypotenuse of a triangle. Sometimes it's to avoid the possibility of a patrol car spotting a young driver late at night. They take back roads, the gravel section lines that cut through the endless corn and soybean fields. It's a grid system, theoretically easy to navigate. Every mile is a road, north, south, east, west. But at night, without the moon, these roads are treacherous. There are no streetlights, no landmarks. Every intersection looks exactly the same. A cross of gravel surrounded by darkness. Just gravel, grass, and the void. Somewhere in that dark void, Brandon makes a mistake. He turns when he should have gone straight. Or perhaps he thought he was on a different road entirely. Just before 2 a.m., the phone rings at the Swanson house in Marshall. Annette and Brian Swanson are asleep. The ring jolts them awake, a sound every parent dreads at that hour. Brian picks up. It's Brandon. He doesn't sound panicked. He sounds annoyed, maybe a little embarrassed. He tells them, "I drove the car into a ditch." He explains the situation. He took a back road. He misjudged a turn or the width of the road, and the car slid off the shoulder. It wasn't a violent crash. The airbags didn't deploy.
The windshield didn't shatter. He isn't hurt, but the car is high-centered. This means the frame of the car is resting on the ground or a mound of dirt, and the wheels on one side are spinning freely in the air. He can't get traction. He can't back it out. He asks his parents to come pick him up, a simple request, a teenager needing a ride home after a mistake. Annette and Brian, shaken but relieved he is okay, get dressed quickly, they grab their keys, and they ask the most important question: where are you? Brandon answers with confidence: I'm near Lynd. Lynd is a very small town, about 7 miles southwest of Marshall. It's practically a suburb in rural terms. It sits in a small valley. Brandon is confident. He knows the area. He knows the lights of Lynd. He tells them he can see the lights. Brian and Annette hop in their pickup truck. They drive toward Lynd. They stay on the phone with Brandon the entire time, keeping the line open, putting him on speaker. When they get to the outskirts of Lynd, they start scanning the ditches. They drive slowly, looking for the reflective glint of the green Chevy Lumina. They look for the silhouette of their son standing by the roadside. They see nothing, just empty roads, tall grass, and the reflective eyes of deer. They try a tactic often used by lost drivers. Brian tells Brandon, "Okay, we're flashing our headlights. Watch for us. Flash your lights back." Brandon gets back in his car. He flashes his headlights on and off. Click, click, click. "Do you see me?" he asks. "No," his parents say, squinting into the blackness. "We don't see anything, just dark." Brian flashes his own truck lights, high beams cutting through the night. "Do you see us?" "No," Brandon says. "I don't see you." This goes on for several minutes. The frustration is palpable. Imagine the scene. 2 vehicles, presumably miles apart, flashing lights into the void, signaling to no one. The confusion starts to creep in. If he's near Lynd, why can't they see each other? The terrain is flat. Lights should be visible for miles. Finally, Brandon gets fed up. The battery in his car is likely draining from the lights. He tells his parents, "I'm not staying in the car." He sees lights in the distance, not the lights of his parents' truck, but the steady glow of a town. He tells his dad that the lights must be Lynd. He decides to walk toward them. He tells his father to drive to the parking lot of a local bar in Lynd, a known landmark, the Lyndwood Bar, and wait for him there.
He'll walk to the bar, and they can meet up. His parents agree. Brian drives to the bar. He parks the truck. He waits. And the call continues. It is now past 2 a.m. Brandon is walking in the dark. We have to try and visualize what he is seeing. He is walking cross-country. He has left the gravel road to take a shortcut through the fields toward the lights. He is walking through dormant crop fields, stumbling over furrows. He jumps barbed wire fences, tearing his jeans. He mentions hearing water rushing nearby, a creek or river. Brandon Swanson remains on the phone with his son. He sits in the quiet cab of his truck in the bar parking lot, the phone pressed to his ear. They are chatting. This is the part that breaks the heart. Brandon isn't panicked. He sounds lucid. He isn't slurring his words. He doesn't sound confused, just determined to get to town and get this night over with. They talk for 47 minutes. Think about that duration. 47 minutes is a long time. It's the length of an entire TV drama episode. It's a 5K walk for a fit young man. During this time, Brandon describes his surroundings. He talks about the gravel roads he crosses. He mentions climbing over fences. He comments on the stars overhead, how bright they are away from the campus lights. He keeps walking toward those lights in the distance, which he is convinced are the town of Lynd. He estimates the distance. "I'll be there soon," he says. The time is roughly 2:30 a.m. Brandon is still walking. His father is still waiting at the bar parking lot in Lynd, scanning the darkness for a walking figure to emerge from the shadows. Suddenly, Brandon interrupts the conversation. There is no preamble, no, "Wait, what's that?" Just a sudden, sharp realization. Oh shit. That was it. No scream of terror, no splash of water, no sound of a struggle or a scuffle, just an expletive, and then silence. Brian shouts into the phone, "Brandon! Brandon!" He waits.
He listens. Is there wind? Is there breathing? Is there the sound of rustling grass? Nothing. The call ends. The connection is severed. Brian and Annette immediately try to call him back. They call again, and again, and again. It rings and rings, echoing in the void. But nobody answers. Eventually, the ringing stops, and it goes straight to voicemail. Hi, this is Brandon. Leave a message. Brandon Swanson is gone. The sun begins to rise on the morning of May 14th. The flat horizon turns gray, then pink, then a brilliant, uncaring blue.
The Swansons are frantic. They haven't slept. They know, with the intuition that only parents possess, that something is wrong. That "oh shit" wasn't a slip on the ice. It wasn't a dropped phone. It was a reaction to something unanticipated. It was a reaction to danger. At 6:30 a.m., bleary-eyed and terrified, they go to the Lynd police to report their son missing. And here we encounter a tragedy that is all too common in missing persons cases involving adults: a bureaucratic wall, a presumption of voluntary disappearance. The police listen to the story. A 19-year-old college student, out drinking after finals, calling his parents late at night and then hanging up? They shrug it off. They tell Annette and Brian to relax. It's not uncommon for young men his age to stay out all night, they say. He probably found a friend's house. He's sleeping it off. He'll turn up by noon when he gets hungry. Annette pushes back. She pleads. She tells them about the phone call, the 47 minutes of conversation, the abrupt ending, the silence that followed. She explains that Brandon isn't the type to just run off. Annette distinctly remembers one officer's response, a response that would haunt her for years, a symbol of a system that wasn't built for urgency. The officer tells her that Brandon has a right to be missing. Essentially, he's an adult. He's 19. If he wants to walk away, if he wants to ghost his parents, he can. It's not a crime to be missing. In the eyes of the law at that moment, no crime had been committed. But Annette is his mother. She knows. She knew the moment the line went dead that something horribly wrong had happened. She knew her son wouldn't put them through this agony intentionally. Reluctantly, later that morning, hours after the sun came up, hours after the trail had gone cold, the Lynd police start a cursory search. They search the town of Lynd. They search the outskirts. They find nothing. No trace of Brandon. No trace of the green Chevy Lumina. And this is where the mystery deepens into the impossible. If Brandon was walking toward Lynd, and his parents were in Lynd, and he walked for 47 minutes toward the lights of Lynd, where was the car? Where was Brandon? The police decide to do the one thing that can solve this geography puzzle. They pull Brandon's cell phone records to triangulate his last location. In 2008, GPS wasn't standard in every phone, but cell towers could give a rough radius. The data comes back later that day, and it shocks everyone.
It rewrites the entire narrative of the night. Brandon had been telling his parents he was near Lynd. He believed he was near Lynd, but the cell tower data showed he was nowhere near Lynd. His call had routed through a tower near a town called Minneota. This placed Brandon near the town of Taunton and Porter. Do you know how far apart these locations are? Lynd is south of Marshall. Taunton is northwest. Brandon was 25 miles away from where he thought he was. 25 miles. He wasn't walking toward Lynd. He was walking in the completely opposite direction, in a different county, toward a different town. He was lost on a scale that is hard to comprehend. He was in a completely different reality than the one he described to his father. Armed with this new data, the search shifts drastically. The scope expands. The Lyon County Sheriff, Joel Dahl, joins the effort. They move the search area 25 miles northwest into the jurisdiction of Lincoln and Yellow Medicine counties. This is a jurisdictional nightmare. 3 counties involved in one search. Deputies begin driving the gravel roads near Taunton, scanning the ditches for a hint of green metal. And there it is. Off a gravel road, right on the Lincoln County line, they find a Chevy Lumina. It's Brandon's car. It's exactly how he described it on the phone. It's hung up on an incline at the edge of the road. It's not a wreck. It's simply stuck. The car had slid into the ditch, and the frame caught on the ground, leaving the wheels on one side spinning helplessly in the air. He had tried to accelerate out, but the wheels just dug divots into the air. But there are eerie details at the scene. The car doors are open as if he left in a hurry. The keys are missing. Brandon took them with him. But Brandon is gone. Because the area is covered in grass and loose gravel, there are no clear footprints. Investigators can't tell which direction he walked. The prairie has swallowed his tracks. Sheriff Dahl stands at the car and looks around the area. He tries to put himself in Brandon's shoes. He tries to figure out what Brandon was seeing at 2 a.m. Brandon said he was walking toward lights he thought were Lynd. Looking from the crash site in the dark, there are no town lights visible in the direction of Lynd. But there is something else. In the distance, atop a grain elevator in the tiny town of Taunton, there is a red warning light. It would have shone from his van.
A beacon for low-flying crop dusters. Investigators theorized that Brandon saw this red light blinking in the dark. Disoriented, tired, and confused, he mistook the red light of the grain elevator for the city glow of Lynd. He began walking toward it. But to get from his car to that light, he would have to cross harsh, unforgiving terrain. Plowed fields with ankle-twisting ruts, barbed wire fences, and most dangerously, water. A massive search begins. We're talking aerial teams flying grid patterns, ground searches with hundreds of volunteers walking shoulder to shoulder through waist-high grass, and bloodhounds brought in from the Twin Cities and South Dakota. A team of highly trained bloodhounds picks up a scent at the car. They follow the trail. They track Brandon's path for 3 miles. 3 miles of walking in the pitch black. The trail goes through muddy fields, past an abandoned farmstead that sits rotting in the wind, a spooky relic of the past. And then, the trail leads the dogs to the banks of the Yellow Medicine River. The Yellow Medicine River isn't a mighty torrent like the Mississippi, but in May 2008, it was swollen with spring rain. It was angry. The water was high, 10 feet deep in some places, cold and moving fast. The dogs follow the scent right to the water's edge, and then the trail stops. Or does it? This is one of the most confusing and debated parts of the case. One dog followed the scent to the water. It looked like the end of the line. It looked like Brandon walked right into the river. The immediate theory becomes accidental drowning. The narrative writes itself. Brandon is walking in the dark. He's disoriented. He thinks the river is just a small creek. He tries to cross. He slips down the muddy bank. Oh shit. Splash. Gone. The current takes him. Boats are deployed. Gates are installed downstream to catch a body. They search for weeks. They drag the river. They walk the banks. They find nothing. Not a shoe, not a piece of clothing, not a body. But here is why Annette Swanson, Brandon's mother, refuses to believe he drowned. She points out a crucial detail in the dog handler's report. While one dog led to the water, that same dog, according to some reports, picked up the scent on the other side of the river. The dog continued along the riverbank, tracked up to another gravel road, and then turned north toward the county line. And there at the gravel road, the scent just evaporated, like a switch was flipped. Annette told CNN, "There really is nothing to indicate that he's in the river. If he fell in, where is he? The Yellow Medicine River isn't an ocean. It's searchable."
Sheriff Jack Vizecki, dedicated to the case, walked that river every day for 30 days. He knew every snag, every root ball, every bend. He found nothing. So if he isn't in the river, what happened to Brandon Swanson? Let's examine the theories that have emerged over the last 15 years. Theory number 1, the disoriented drowning.
This remains the official stance of many investigators. Brandon was 25 miles away from where he thought he was. This suggests a profound level of cognitive dissonance. Even if he didn't seem drunk, perhaps he was suffering from hypothermia? Or perhaps the minor accident caused the concussion. In this state, he walks into the river, slips, and is swept away. His body is simply snagged somewhere deep underwater, snared by roots or debris, buried under silt where searchers missed it. It happens. Bodies have been found years later in smaller bodies of water. But for 17 years? In a small river that has been combed repeatedly? Theory number 2, exposure and hyperthermia. He walked through the fields. He got wet crossing the river or a creek. The temperature dropped into the 40s that night. He began to suffer from hyperthermia. One symptom of severe hyperthermia is paradoxical undressing. The victim feels incredibly hot as their body shuts down, so they strip off their clothes. Another is terminal burrowing, where the victim tries to hide in a small enclosed space, like an animal. Did he find a badger hole? An abandoned barn? Did he curl up somewhere outside the search grid? But searches were conducted again in the fall, after the harvest, when the fields were bare and visibility was perfect. Dogs searched 122 square miles. They found nothing. No clothes, no remains. Theory number 3, foul play. This is the theory that keeps the locals awake at night. Remember the dog scent? It trailed up the bank to a gravel road, and then stopped. Did Brandon walk up to that road? Did he see a car approaching? Did he think, finally, help? Did he get into a car with a stranger? Sheriff Vizecki has gone on record saying he cannot rule out foul play. He gave a chilling quote to the press. Someone could have been in the shadows, and they got him that way. Was he hit by a drunk driver who panicked and hid the body? Did he stumble upon something he wasn't supposed to see? Rural farm theft? A drug deal? And then there is the question of the oh shit. Was it a slip on the mud? Or was it Brandon seeing someone he didn't expect? Some theories suggest he might have been followed from the party. But there is no physical evidence, no tire tracks, no struggle, no blood. Just the silence. The search for Brandon eventually wound down. The volunteers went home, the helicopters landed, the news crews packed up. But the fight led by his parents was just beginning. Annette and Brandon Swanson were traumatized, not just by the loss of their son, but by those first crucial wasted hours. He has a right to be missing. Those words echoed in their heads. They felt that if the police had started searching immediately when the call came in at 6:30 a.m., instead of waiting, they might have found him while the trail was fresh, before the scent faded, before the weather changed. Annette took her grief and turned it into action. She became a lobbyist. She channeled her pain into policy. She met with Marty Seifert, the minority leader of the State House of Representatives. They drafted a bill. They called it Brandon's Law. The goal was simple, but revolutionary. The law would require police to begin an investigation immediately for any missing adult, especially if they are in dangerous circumstances. No more wait 24 hours. No more he has a right to be missing. No more distinguishing between a lost child and a lost 19-year-old. No more arbitrary waiting periods while a family suffers. It wasn't an easy fight. Law enforcement pushed back. They were worried about privacy and resources. If an adult wants to leave town, they have that right. They argued that they couldn't chase every adult who didn't call home. But the Swansons argued that the safety of the missing person overrides that.
The danger factor was key. If there is evidence of danger, like a car in a ditch, the clock starts now. In May 2009, 1 year after Brandon vanished, the bill passed both houses of the Minnesota legislature. Governor Tim Pawlenty signed it into law. The Swanson stood right next to him. Brandon's law changed everything in Minnesota. It clarified that the agency taking the report is the lead agency, solving the jurisdictional chaos that plagued Brandon's search between the 3 counties. It has since been a model for 4 other states. Marty Seifert later said, "It will save lives."
And it has. Brandon couldn't be saved, but his legacy is saving others. Every time a search starts immediately for a missing adult in Minnesota, that is Brandon's legacy at work. But laws, however noble, do not bring children home. They do not fill the empty chair at the dinner table. They do not answer the question of what happened in the dark. Brandon Swanson has been missing for over 17 years. The Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension took over the case in 2010. They have received over 90 leads. They have dug up land. They have drained ponds. They have re-interviewed witnesses. But they still don't have Brandon. If you drive past the Swanson home in Marshall, Minnesota at night, you might notice something. For years, every single night, Annette and Brian left their porch light on. It wasn't just a habit, it was a beacon, a symbol, a signal to Brandon, wherever he is, that the way home is lit, that he hasn't been forgotten, that they are still waiting for the phone to ring. Brandon Swanson walked into the dark on a gravel road in 2008. He left behind a car, a confusing cell phone record, and a grieving family. He left behind a law that saves others. But the question remains, lingering like the fog on the Yellow Medicine River. What happened in that 47th minute? What did he see in the dark? And why, when the sun came up, was the prairie empty? If you have any information regarding the disappearance of Brandon Swanson, please contact the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. Even the smallest detail could be the key to bringing him home.